Bam.
This is Gregory Poirier, and you're watching the Break It Down Show.
It's funny in the modern world when like we can search for anything, and the robots are always trying to guess what we want. If you type in your name into a search, it doesn't find you, even though you've done all these things.
Oh,
It brings
really?
me to it brings me to the fighter, the UFC fighter.
Well, of
If
course, yeah.
and they're always trying to blend these things. Like, no, I typed in your Gregory Poirier. I type it into the thing, and it's like, how about this fighter? Like, no, that I meant what I said. And so
Well,
it's one
good.
of the
It's good
things
to
that
know I'm so
can,
well known and respected by the
yeah.
algorithms
Well,
that run the
and
world.
the point here is I mean, obviously, like you've built this incredible career, a dream career. You get to write books for a living and screenplays and all these things. But even then, it's like there's always this battle for existence in the things that we do in the entertainment world. You can it's always erasing things and always like trying to outguess me for the thing that I want instead of just give me the answer. I want Greg. I'm like, good luck to the other guy, but I want Gregory Poirier. That's what I want.
Sadly, the same thing happens on IMDb. Like you type Gregory, there's 15 Gregorys, but not mine yet. And then you put the P, and then it's Gregory Peck and a bunch of other people. And it takes a while to get enough letters in there that I actually come up.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to put the link up for Gregory's latest book, A Thousand Cuts. It's available on Amazon. And you guys know what I always say. Buy two, buddy read. Always great to do. Start a book club. The guy sitting right over here probably will come and talk to your book club. So these are things I say
Absolutely.
often, but books make great gifts, you guys. And these guys are available. And Gregory has had a wonderful career. I'm going to put his website up here in a sec so you guys can get an idea. But thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for talking about the silliness of web searches and trying to exist on IMDb, etc. There's a Pete Turner who's dead. I put Pete A. Turner in, hopefully to, identify myself. And it's just, I cannot kill that dead guy off. He hasn't produced a thing in years and years. But I don't rate for my own name in YouTube. You know, kind of thing. And I've outproduced every Pete Turner on YouTube. It's funny. It's a funny conundrum.
I guess 13 feature films and one TV series is not enough to get you high enough in the search. So
yeah. It is also true that the Hollywood Hills are full of a bunch of wonderful homes with people who you've never heard of, but they're trying to remain obscure. You're actually producing things out on the very tip of where all the production happens.
Yep. I've been very fortunate in my career. I've had a lot of things made. The last couple of which I was very happy with. I mean, they haven't had any, there's maybe been one or two that I've been not happy with, but most of them just having something produced is kind of its own reward. And when they're good, that's even an extra,
It's like a minor miracle when these things, maybe even a full miracle when these things happen.
My standard line is when my wife and I are in a movie theater and the lights go down, the studio logo comes up on the screen. I turn to her and I say, honey, this movie might actually happen.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I'm in the middle of this process too. I'm trying to do several things at one time. Start a film industry in my hometown. It's up north in California, where we lost our refinery. So the town is hoping that we can get some of the business. And so it's like, hey Pete, help us build a film community. And what the hell does that even mean? Like that's one thing. And already hard to compete and figure out and get money when you never have enough money. If someone gave us $10,000 right now and said, have at it, we'd be like, great. Can you quintuple that and then double it? Because we can spend $10,000 in a second. It's hard to make things, man. Really hard.
It really is hard. And unfortunately, it's a little bit extra hard in California. Which is so short-sighted, I think, by our government here. It's sort of the industry that built Los Angeles, and now it can't survive here because they won't play ball.
Yeah. Is that going to get better?
I have no idea. I mean, it's going to take somebody that really wants to make it happen. It's because right now it's just a nightmare. It's cheaper now to take your entire crew and everybody and fly them to, the Czech Republic or something and shoot over there, or even Vancouver. It's I this book it takes place in Southeast Asia, and the second one, which I've already written, takes place in North Africa. And the guys who optioned the book rights for a streaming series, they said to me, "Is there any way the third book could take place in Vancouver?"
It's so easy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It
I mean, God bless you. I hope you pull something together up there because it would be great to have that in California. And I bet you'd get some, you know, some of the union people down here that can't get work. I bet you'd get people moving up there if you did that. I mean, I think it would probably
yeah.
expand your tax base and be good for your town.
The pieces are there. It's just I don't know that they go together, and you can't know that right now at the stage we're at. We're just trying to figure out how to even properly incorporate, because even that's complicated. It's none of this stuff is simple. We can always get 7 steps ahead, but what's step 3? That's where we are right now. Like,
Right.
how do we get everything organized? I'm not even joking. Like, we're doing this thing. We have a lot of energy. We've got a lot of great people. Everybody I talk to is stoked about it, but I can't use them yet. I can't pay them, and I'm glad to ask for favors, but it's really complex. And
Where
then,
are you? What town are you in?
well, I'm in Orange County, but the town's Benicia up north. It's where that Valero
Okay.
refinery is, and so that thing's done. It's like it's not even they're not making product anymore. They're turning everything down, and so we're not going to be able to stand up an industry for years at the best that really can do anything. And maybe we'll catch a couple of breaks with some things, but that won't be the machine that runs. It'll have to be this thing that does participates well with the union, understands those guys, gets the city to write permits, helps, all these other things that go into how do you become the slogan I'm using, Gregory, Benicia is the best place to make films in California. We ran out of red tape. You just come
That's
in
good. I like that.
and
Yeah.
start shooting, But
Unfortunately,
it doesn't mean the town is going to
you
agree.
still have the states led red tape. That's the only issue,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they need to get their act together on these tax credits and stuff because that's killing us. If you can go somewhere else and get a 40% tax credit on your budget, why
Yeah.
are you going to shoot here?
There's
So
another problem too, and I'm sure you're and 100% right. Like, let's not race past the tax credit. How the tax credit is applied, what you're giving the tax credit on, all of these things matter. And by the way, yeah, Louisiana is going to kick our ass, and so why not go film this thing in Louisiana instead?
yeah,
So
but then you got to live in Shreveport for 6 months. Who wants to do that?
yeah.
No offense.
Yeah.
Everybody's
No
listening
offense.
from Shreveport. No, I
But
mean,
your comfort, like the producers are going to say, hey, we're not spending money on comfort around here. We got to save money. Yeah. The other thing is, and I've talked to filmmakers about it, and I'm like, what is it going to take for you to consider like a little town like Benicia to film in? Like, well, I mean, do they have, let's say they have soundstage space. Okay, let's say that they have, the local talent to help you make the thing. Okay, let's say all that someplace like, I just don't believe California's going to do it. And there's just a dragon there that I don't know how to slay, because I've got to convince these filmmakers that we are the right place, and it's competitive in that space, especially when you don't have the tax credit to back up.
yeah, and it's hard because it's at the state government level, it's all about money. If you can hire the right lobbyists and funnel enough money into so and so's campaign and this and that. I
Yeah,
mean, it's just there's no incentive on the part of any of these politicians to actually try to revive our industry. It's all about what's in it for them,
yeah,
and so that's where we really get in trouble. And that's
yeah.
not a partisan thing. I think that's
Right.
across the board, you know.
We have, yeah, yeah, exactly. I say, like this, we're talking about policy, not politics, and
Right.
and there's a difference at that point. Yeah. Does it make you not want to make things, or do you just accept that you're not going to make them in California? How does your brain align on that?
Well, it's interesting because the two last movies that I had made were this one called Soul on Fire, which took place in St. Louis, and this one called Knox Goes Away, which actually shot in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And neither one of them was a very expensive movie. I think Knox was more because it had Michael Keaton and Al Pacino and James Marsden and all these people in it that, elevated the budget a little bit.
Right.
But the other one was fascinating and is maybe a good template for people to look at because the story took place in St. Louis, and it was
Mm.
about a person from St. Louis. And these producers, J. Todd Harris, Margaret French Isaac, they went to St. Louis and they actually raised all the funds locally. I think they had like 400 investors or something like that, but they were all people from the St. Louis business community that,
Yeah.
and it was just, that's the way you have to do movies now, I think, is you have to think outside the box and outside the
Right.
studio system. You have to think, how am I going to put this together without going through Warner Brothers or Paramount, which I guess are the
Yeah.
same thing now. And, everything's consolidating. Nobody's buying anything. It's really rough, but the smart people are the ones that are figuring out off the beaten track ways to do these things and to raise money for these things. So, part of the reason I wrote this book is because nobody will buy a script or an idea or anything if there's not some IP behind it. So
Right.
I thought, well, let's make some IP.
Yeah. 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 The film I'm working on several films, but the one that's kind of the lead pony right now, and this goes. I got all these ponies. I'm like, oh, this one, catch it. There it goes. And then it stops, and you're like, no, no, wrong one. I gotta go find another one. But we're making a fight film, and fight films do well. So those are easy to sell. And I'm putting quote fingers around easy because it's not easy, but there's a whole universe there that we're starting to build and flesh out, and so we'll see. But for sure, I want to approach the fight community. There's a lot of people there that have a lot of money, and like, why don't you invest in your own story? And there is interest in
Yeah.
that. I've not cracked the nut on how to actually get the checks written. We're probably not ready for it mechanically anyhow. But that's for sure our approach. Like if this thing's going to take $40 million to sell, man, I want to go to the people that love fighting so much that they're in it, they make money on it, and that have them collectively write that check for 40 million or whatever it's going to be. It's not going to be cheap. It's a period
Right.
piece. So it's not going to be 8 million, and 8 million sounds impossible, but there's a lot of money in fighting, and you get the right. I mean, when we really think about these things, Top Rank Fighting, has put on the best, that's Bob Arum's company, everybody. That's a media company. Yes,
Right.
fights are their main source of media, but they have, I mean, catalogs and catalogs, and they have all kinds of media. If you go, I went to their warehouse, they have posters from all their fights, and it's all this jaw-dropping stuff. They are a media company. If I can convince them that they want to make a movie, boy, that's the first partner I want, because they'll want control, but they'll write a check and they can do it.
Well, what you're saying is also smart because you're not going to them and saying, "Will you finance this entire movie?"
Right.
You're saying, "Will you give me a piece, and then off of that, I can raise more." And you're not obligated to give me anything unless I get the rest of it.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
a good way to do it, I think, because inherently, movies are a risky business. More of them fail than hit.
Right.
And so you have to help these people realize they're not risking everything on this one venture that may or may not. But if it hits, boy, look out.
Yeah. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
can
Big
make
returns.
money. Yeah. So
Yeah. 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 It is a great time to create things, but as always, you have to figure out how to navigate the marketplace, because that's just never going to get simpler, I don't think.
yeah, and the marketplace is shrinking. That's the other problem. All of
Mm,
these consolidations and there are just fewer and fewer buyers out there for movies. So
yeah. 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 That's a conundrum right there, because there's always more movies, right? Because you're selling against an existing corpus of work, and it's massive, you know,
right,
and
right.
everything is relatable to something else. Yeah. Right. That's why you have to do reboots and all these other things.
Well, and a place like Netflix is sort of a conundrum because they're not going to buy anything new and original and interesting, you
Hmm.
know. But at the same time, they'll show all of these foreign shows and stuff, which I find really fascinating. I mean, my wife and I would watch a lot of stuff from other countries because they have it on there, and you never had that outlet before you where you could see all this stuff, you know. And some of it's really good, some of it's junk, but some of it's good. And so but they're as far as like what movies they're going to buy, what TV shows they're going to buy, they're just locked into this algorithm. Like there's nobody there saying, "Let's do this interesting thing that's sort of different." And they're just they're looking at how many clicks. It's like a clicks thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
how many minutes are being watched. I think we were sort of doomed the minute they started referring to what we do as content.
Mm.
Just an unfortunate word, and it trivializes what we do, and it makes them not really care. If they've got a big name or two big names and a splashy title, they'll put that on because they know a certain amount of people will click on it, whether it's good or not,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's too bad.
I've always been a reader, and so how I read things, and I don't get through every book, but most every book I start, the promise I make to myself is that I'm going to finish it. Now that I've quit plenty of books, but the vast majority of books I pick up, I'm in it all the way to the end. Do you think that kind of ethos still exists, or has that eroded too?
Well, I'm new to this whole publishing thing, so as far as books go, I can only report on my friends and family,
Mhm.
but I have a lot of readers in my social group, and especially in my family, a lot of readers. And I think we sort of have that same thing, at least I do, where
Mhm.
it's going to have to really, really be boring for me to
Yeah.
stop reading something. I'll usually give the author the benefit of the doubt and read all the way through it. But I think I mean, look at your own, go on your Netflix and look at continue watching, and I bet there's 6, 7 things on there that you didn't finish
Man.
because you just, you got bored or whatever. Something came up, the phone rang, and you never went back to it, or it's just that this is not a conducive environment for intelligent, sort of sophisticated storytelling, because
Yeah.
you've got to have something. I mean, I've had writers that have done projects for streamers say to me, they literally say to you, where you have to restate your premise every 15 minutes because someone's going to be just tuning in, or someone's going to tune out, or they're going to come back a month later and pick it up again and say, wait, what was this about? So it's
Yeah.
it's it's they have no respect for their audience, and they're not an audience, they're subscribers, and that's how they
Yeah.
treat them. So
How
it'll be
many
interesting.
movies in a theater have you ever walked out of?
Not very many. My
Right.
wife's more prone to do that than I am.
Mhm.
I think because I'm in that business, because I'm a filmmaker, I tend to say, well, they worked pretty hard on this. Let's stick this out and see what happens,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
my wife is if my wife is not getting it, she'll turn to me. She has this phrase, "What the f are we watching?" And as soon as she says that, I know we're getting up. She does it when we're streaming stuff too. 20
Yeah.
minutes into something and she says that, she's like, well, okay. I'll say, okay, if I want to, I'll finish it later by myself, but we're done.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, you are done, right? Yeah, because you got a contract. Like, hey, it's not you break up stuff, but like, yeah, you're not into it. I'm not going to make you sit here and watch it with me, and heck, I'm not that into it either. And
Yeah,
there's
she'll
been
say,
times when I haven't walked out, but the person with me is like, if you would have said anything about walking out, I would have walked out. And I'm like, oh
right.
god damn it, we could have walked out together.
Well, my wife will say, it's fine, stay, I'll wait in the lobby. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you wait in the lobby. Come on.
Yeah, yeah, you'll hear about that one again at some point. You remember that time? You're like, oh god damn it, you said I could. I fell for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing, I guess, is if you've been through a movie that you're like, this is a stinker, um, it impacts how I perceive the people that made that movie, in particular the lead actors. And so I'll just say it right now, like I don't care for any if Mark Ruffalo's in something, that's a movie I'm not going to watch because he's too
Okay.
political. And so I don't want that, and I don't want that to creep in at all into my movie. And if I detect it, and look, I'm old, I'm angry, I'm cynical, I get all that thing, but I don't trust him to give me a good ride. He's used all that trust, and so yeah, maybe in the theater days that was worse because you could burn somebody, an actor up, and like I'm never gonna watch another Cary Grant movie again, whatever it's gonna be. But I don't know. What are your
That is
thoughts
a
on that?
phrase. That is a phrase I will never say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'll watch anything
yeah.
with Cary Grant in it. I don't
Sure. Yeah,
care.
yeah. It's funny. I talk to my folks, and they'll talk about, oh, so and so. He looked like Cary Grant. He looked like, and he was like we lose track of how iconic some of these other actors were and how big they were because it wasn't as crowded of a space. And so Cary Grant, man, he loomed. He was enormous.
I actually shook his hand once. Cary
Did you
Grant.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was of all the bizarre things. It was at
Yeah.
the gala premiere of Footloose. He was at
Okay.
the gala premiere of Footloose for reasons I do not know.
Right.
But there he was. And when he was walking, and I was nobody then. I was a college student. I wasn't even in the industry yet, but I was part of the, sometimes they hand out those papers so they can fill the first couple of rows or whatever.
Yeah.
I was one of those. I was a writing student at UCLA at the time. And after the premiere, he came walking out, and the whole crowd just parted for him.
Wow.
It was really, and I just stepped out and stuck my hand out, and he shook my hand.
That's
And,
crazy.
yeah.
Also,
So,
Clark Gable, another guy who, he looked like Clark Gable. And everybody,
yeah.
I guess we still have like Brad Pitt and George Clooney, those guys that are super handsome that everybody thinks about. But, and maybe if the crowd parted and you'd shake George Clooney's hand. But that mystique seems, and again, I'm old, I'm angry, I'm cynical, I get it. But it seems like that mystique has moved to other things besides the movies.
Well, and it was really different back then because they didn't have all this social media, and we didn't have 24-hour a day access to these people. They had these very
Right.
carefully crafted images, and there's all kinds of weird things going on in Cary Grant's life with LSD and just all kinds of things. But
Yeah.
the public didn't know any of that at the time because the
Yeah.
studio kept him. Look at Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson, nobody knew he was gay,
Yeah.
until he got sick. So,
Yeah. God, I remember that. It was shocking. And I was kind of too young to be shocked because I didn't know who Cary Grant was, Rock Hudson was. But it was shocking because AIDS was a thing, and all of a sudden this really famous person had it, and then it was like, and it's because he's been gay, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, his name is Rock.
I've seen him making out with Doris Day half a dozen times.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you come to find out Doris Day is part of the storytelling making machine. You're gonna de-gayify. You're gonna be, the beard for the dude and everything. Yeah, it's funny. How that, again, like we're complaining about the modern version of these things, but also I've been to Allie Willis's house before she passed away, and her house used to be I don't know, maybe Paramount or MGM, one of the big executive, like, take your thing to this house, pool party, sex palace, is what that place used to be, and so it was like the starlit runway, where they bring the young girls in, and so you're like, gosh, that's horrible. I don't know if that's gone, but all eras have their problems.
That's horrible. And is it safe for me to sit on this couch?
Right. Yeah. Well, have you ever seen Allie Willis's house? There's stuff everywhere. You always got to look where you're going to sit because she had a million things in her house, and it was all. She was an artist's artist, so it was oddball. Like when you walk up to your house, you're like, oh, that's for sure her house. You don't need the address. You just see like the bowling balls stuck into the ground. You're like, bowling balls. There's. We're no longer in the middle here. We're off to the side, and she was so incredible and artistic. Do you remember who she was at all, or
not really? I mean, I know the name, but I don't know much about her.
She wrote a bunch of incredible songs. She wrote "September" for Earth, Wind and Fire, among other things. We sat in her house to interview her, and and by design, her house is just full of pop culture stuff from decades. Like James Brown hair treatment. Bottle of it sitting there with the ad behind it, just all that kind of stuff. And it's so crowded that when she sat down, we looked up and we're like, oh my God, look at all the platinum and gold records behind her head on this giant wall, and you're like, God damn, this lady. Yeah. Anyhow, I wanted to get back to the book. That's what you're here to talk about.
That sounds good to me.
1,000 Cuts. I guess let's dive into this a little bit. Where does the premise come from? Like, how do you get the idea for any of your amazing screenplays? Where does the germ turn into something you can work with?
They all come from somewhere different, and this one was its own kind of unique thing. I was, I needed to write something. That's my job, so I needed to come up with an idea, and generating ideas is, a lot of times what I wind up doing is I sit there and watch TCM for 12 hours a day while my brain sort of does its own thing, and then eventually something pops in. but I wasn't coming up with anything, and I was sitting there watching Robert Mitchum and Out of the Past, right?
Mm,
And I thought to myself, okay, here's a challenge. Give yourself a challenge, because sometimes that's what you need to do to come up with an idea, is say, here's some circumstances, figure this out. So my challenge was to figure out the movie. Originally, it was a movie idea. Figure out the movie that Humphrey Bogart or Robert Mitchum would be making now if they
mhm,
were alive. What's the modern day version of the stuff they were doing back then? So and so I sort of knew it had to have a very noirish kind of setup to it.
mm, mhm,
It had to have a femme fatale. It had to have some kind of a heist, preferably gone terribly wrong, right? It had to have a lot of backstabbing and twists and turns and all that kind of stuff. And I just started thinking about it. And I thought back to this idea I had had once a long time ago about a dictator who has a bunch of gold that he needs to get out of the country before he's toppled. And I had
mm,
thought of it a couple years before, but had never been able to figure out what to do with it. It was just sort of like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And so when I started applying it to this set of parameters, like, okay, he's got to get this gold out, and he calls Humphrey Bogart, what happens? That's sort of where the idea started to form. And so I gave it this very sort of noirish way in, which is, this guy, he's out of the game, he's doing something else, he's working for these mobsters now. And then his ex-lover who broke his heart and his old rival, who are now married to each other, sort of pull him back in to this heist of this gold, and what ensues from there. And then the whole thing just sort of laid itself out. I mean, I make that sound simple, but
yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know but yeah,
But when you know
that's
how
how
to
the
do
idea
these things,
generated. The
yeah,
idea generated from literally giving myself a set of parameters and saying, figure something out that
mhm,
fits these parameters, you know
yeah,
um
yeah,
and I was originally, as I said, going to write it as a movie, but I took a few cracks at it and it just wasn't working that
mm,
way. And it was something I didn't feel I could pitch as a movie, because it's really hard to explain. Like, it was a tone that I was going for, it was a feeling that I
okay,
was going for, and it's hard to pitch that. You know,
yeah,
it's hard to say, well, this is how there's a bunch of trucks and there's a mountain, but what you're really trying to get across is the tone and the feel and
yeah,
the adventure of it. So I just decided to I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, a guy named Andrew Marlowe. I don't know if you know who he is, but he created the television show Castle. He wrote Air Force One, End of Days. He's a really good writer, this friend of mine.
yeah,
And we were sitting there one day lamenting the current state of the movie business, just sort of having a bitch fest. And he said, I always saw you transitioning into being a novelist. And at the
mm,
time, I sort of laughed it off. But then when I was back in front of my keyboard struggling again with this idea, I thought, well, look, why not give that a whack? Let's see what happens. And I started
yeah.
writing, and it just really worked. And I wrote it. And there you have it.
There you have it. Okay, so screenwriting, and you said like, it's easy. It's not really easy. It's straightforward. You know the program. You know what to do. You know when to turn left instead of right to get the audience to move a little bit. How different was that for you than writing this novel? You want to write about tone. Novel's a better setting for that, at least for you, right? So how do you sort out like, hey, I'm not because and maybe the audience doesn't realize this, so I'll just say this to you guys. Uh, Gregory's job is not to write a whole lot of stage direction in his screenplay. If he can say it in dialogue, he should, right? And there's a lot of beliefs about that, but that's kind of the
Well,
premise.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I actually
go
kind of,
ahead.
I kind of think the opposite of that. I think
Okay,
if you can figure out a way to show something without dialogue, that's even better for a film,
okay,
right?
all right. Are you
Um,
putting that on the screenplay, or are you leaving that to the director?
well, no, I mean, you have to put a certain amount of it, and
Okay.
like, there's a couple of examples that I always use, and I don't know if you want to get into this or not, but
No, please let's do it.
there's a scene. There's two things that I always sort of bring up when I'm talking to younger writers about how to show,
Mhm.
not tell, right?
Okay.
And there's a scene at the first time you see Robert Mitchum in Cape Fear.
Yeah.
He's walking up the steps in the courthouse, and this lovely young woman is coming down the stairs with an armful of papers and files, and he bumps into her and they go everywhere. And he looks down at him and he keeps walking. Right. And I say, okay, now you know, no, not a word has been said, but you know exactly who this guy is. Right.
Mm-hmm.
You've just built a character in 5 seconds without saying a word.
Right.
And that to me is sort of the goal in screenwriting. You know,
Okay.
there's another one. If you want another example, I'll give you.
Please.
At the beginning of Lonely Are the Brave, right, which is a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. It's Kirk Douglas. The opening of the movie is he's a cowboy. He's lying next to his fire with his boots on, his head's on his saddle, his horse is grazing nearby. He's lying there looking up at the sky, and you're like, okay, we're in a classic Western, right?
Right.
And then it cuts to his point of view, and he's watching a jet make a chemtrail across the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And right away you get what this movie is about. It's this guy, he's out of time, he's, you know, trying to live a lifestyle that doesn't really exist anymore. It's all this stuff, and you haven't said a word, right? So to me, that's always kind of the goal.
Okay.
But you can also do it in dialogue. And I always say, don't say what you're really saying, say something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
That gets it across. And can we swear on this show? I don't know.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's a scene that I always point out in Slapshot. You ever seen Slapshot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that movie.
There's a scene where Paul Newman's sitting with the woman. I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. And they're in the park. They're sitting on a bench, and they're talking. She hates this town. She wishes she could get out of here. She has all this angst about this place. It's killing her spirit, this town, but she doesn't say any of that. What happens is they're sitting there talking about something completely different, and she notices a statue, and she says to him, "Why is there a statue of a dog?" And he says, "Oh, that's the dog that saved the town from the flood." And she goes, "Fuck that dog." Right. And that tells you all that stuff I just said about how she hates this town and she wish, you know, but she doesn't say it. She says the other thing. And so so I think the dialogue thing is, you know, I think when I'm writing a movie, my goal is how little dialogue can I use to get across what I want to get across. You know?
Well, in typical fashion, the thing I say that I think is going to be true ends up being, because I know that every time I say these things, I'm positive I hedged when I said this, you know, but it's always like, and ready for the person to say the opposite, because this is storytelling, right?
Well, and that's just me. I mean, you know, you take someone like Aaron Sorkin, who's a fantastic writer, and he's all words. I mean, that's all it is words. But I don't feel that I can probably put across as beautiful dialogue as he does. You know, everything is so musical and it's so his voice. Like you could hear a scene from an Aaron Sorkin movie and go, "Oh, that's an Aaron Sorkin movie."
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm sort of a classicist. I like the old style of like trying to get things across and visually as opposed to.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I was reading Godfather, you know, the screenplay for that. And there's very detailed but short, like lots of room for interpretation, stage direction in it, you know?
Yeah.
And it's sort of a blend of the two where you need to understand the room that you're looking at or whatever it's going to be, but it's driven by dialogue and then relies on the actors to portray that dialogue. And I love reading that screenplay because it's presented in a way that I'm not a screenwriter, but I'm a hobbyist. I kind of mess around with it. I like to read screenplays. I like to try to get these things made. I like to try to improve them to a higher level so that they're more makeable than they were when I got them. And it's presented in such a beautiful fashion, and you can see it in your head because you've seen the movie 100 times, but it all goes together. And I try to draw lessons from reading that movie or Tombstone. That's a great screenplay. Where it's a great screenplay when you read it, even if it hasn't been made. Like, this is great, you know. But I haven't captured the essence of what makes a screenplay great. Why I instantly go, "Oh, this is really good." And I'll show it to somebody else who I respect their opinion. Like, yeah, that's excellent. you know.
It's
And so
alchemy.
I don't know.
It's alchemy. I
Okay,
mean,
it is alchemy.
you
Okay.
never know. It's some things work and some things don't. And if I knew the reasons, I would have
Okay.
25 more movies than I have. You know,
Yeah.
it's just what it is. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love the screenplay for The Godfather, you know, but that's a good
Yeah.
example of like, okay, the theme is set up so quickly. And so the very first
Mhm.
line of The Godfather, do you remember what it is?
No, not off the top of my head.
The very first line of The Godfather is, I believe in America.
Right.
And
Wow.
how perfect is that? You
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
the Undertaker speaking, who's there to
Yeah.
ask him to, you know,
Right.
I believe in
Yeah.
America. Welcome to The
Yeah.
Godfather. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. And you don't know how dark and dangerous that room is. I mean, as soon as you start to see it, you're like, oh, something's going on. But you're right. I could picture, I could hear his voice, but I couldn't pull the line. And you're right. I believe in America. Yeah. Yeah. It's great, man.
I don't know if you've ever
Um,
seen. There's a
yeah.
great photo. There's a great photo somewhere out there floating around of Robert Duvall, and
Uh-huh.
when they're shooting that scene, and he's got all Marlon Brando's lines written on a card that's taped to his chest,
Uh-huh.
so that Brando, when he's talking to him, he can read his lines off of his chest. It's
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
That is pretty crazy. It's also one of my favorite things to get everybody to understand, like, you know, how make-believe movies are, is that that Phoebe Cates water gag shot, but it shows you the crew, and they're all smashed up against the house because there's only so much concrete for them to be on, to be at the right angle, to have her come out of the water all gorgeous and beautiful. But it's just like 30 people and equipment just smashed into like a 8x8 space, and it's the least sexy thing in the world, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure it was not very sexy for her. I'm sure it was incredibly uncomfortable, and you know,
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. That movie is crazy because if you watch it as a kid who sees it, you love every second of it because it's wild, it's fun. You want your high school years to be like that. And when you watch it with your parent brain on, you're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It's like awful. It's a totally new
there's a
movie.
lot of movies like that. There's a lot of
Yeah.
movies where once you start watching them with your kids, you sort of go, "Oh Jesus." Yeah.
Yeah. This is what high school was like. Wait a second. No, it wasn't.
I think it's worse now. I mean,
Yeah. How so?
well, I mean, I don't know how old you are, but when I was in high school, there might have been some cocaine here and there, but it was weed, and it was, can we get some beer? And it was, you know, let's share a bottle of Boone's Farm and that kind of stuff. And nowadays
Right.
it's just, they've got fentanyl and crack, and it's just terrible out there right now. They can get anything, you know.
Yeah.
And it's it's a different world. I think it's a lot more dangerous for teenagers now. I mean, you can
Yeah.
go, and plus we didn't have to deal with all this social media, which I think is really toxic, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm very glad that we didn't have those phones when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Very happy.
Man. Yeah. We got a chance to make some mistakes, you know, and not have them captured for all eternity. You could say inappropriate things and learn from them. Yeah, we've kind of denied the youth those lessons, you know. Also, we had to get out of the house to do anything, so you couldn't just hide with your computer and never relate to anyone.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
went out and did things. Yeah, mm, that's not fun. that's not that's not
Also,
comfortable. That's not
I
fun.
grew up on an island. I grew up on Maui, so
Okay.
it's we were even more insulated, I think, from a lot of things,
Hmm.
just by
Hmm.
virtue of being surrounded by thousands of miles of ocean, you know.
Yeah, and that's back when the drinking age was 18 as well. I mean, I'm 56. I'm not the oldest guy in the world, but you know, I've lived the better part of a century. And I remember when it changed to 18, it's like, dang it, because it just missed me. So, you know, Hawaii wasn't going to do me any good. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I was 20 when I moved to the mainland, and I'd
mm,
been drinking legally for 2 years, and then all of a sudden I
yeah,
was illegal again when I moved over here. It was kind of weird. It was,
yeah,
I said, isn't there an exemption like for people from?
yeah, like a grandfather clause. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm writing, and again, like I write for a hobby, so let's not get crazy about how good I am at it. but I'm writing a story. Could become a screenplay, but I'm just kind of redoing kind of a moonlighting-esque private eye story, you know? Just kind of that general premise. That show was so great. And if you didn't, it's one of those things that I don't know that you can describe how impactful it was. I don't think you could repeat that success, on the nose, because it just wouldn't work today in a lot of ways, and it barely worked back then. Did you
But
did you
but
get into that whole
what that
world?
show had, what that show had
Yeah,
was it
go
had
ahead.
Bruce Willis. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
popped him, you know.
Okay.
And I mean, I just remember he just came off the screen like
He did.
talk about charisma, talk about movie
Yeah.
starness. He just popped, and you couldn't
Yeah.
not watch that show because of him, you know. And
Yeah.
so it's not always even just about how good is this script and how good is this show and whatever. Sometimes it's just about, oh, we got really lucky and cast Bruce Willis in this thing without knowing it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
they really didn't. And it's easy to look back and say, "Oh, obviously he'd do great in Die Hard." I remember, like, it was like, "Is he gonna? Can that guy do this Die Hard thing?" Like,
right.
and yeah, charisma for days. Oh my God,
Yeah.
he's charismatic.
Yeah. It's crazy the way, I mean, movie stars are rare because it's a rare thing. They were,
Yeah,
the camera just loves them, you know, their energy comes through, their pop comes through, and it's not a common thing. That's why there's so few of them, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That charisma doesn't mean it's necessarily marketable. So you can, like when oh, I don't know, Clint Howard, when he shows up, you can't help but feel him on the screen, and he's a secondary, tertiary kind of character player, but just his face, it just changes whatever's happening on the screen when he shows up. It's just there's an impact. And I'm picking an obscure actor compared to someone like Bruce Willis, where you definitely
Right.
feel him. And I've also sat across, and I bet you'll agree with this. I've sat across in real life from actors who have that laser beam that comes out, and you're like, Jesus Christ, you're impossible
Yeah.
to sit in front of because there's so much energy coming. Like you like don't want to look at him, and everybody, I mean, physically trying to get out of the laser beam because it's just intense. And that, I think, also translates not reliably in a good direction or anything, but that translates through the camera, not always into real life, because those folks often seem to careen out of control a little bit.
Yeah. But you know, we were talking about Cary Grant. He definitely had
Mm,
that. But then there's also this other kind of movie star where if you looked at them in real life, you would say, that guy's not very good looking or whatever. Like,
yeah,
how did Humphrey Bogart become a movie star? It's just all personality. You know,
yeah,
he's not a good looking dude. You know, so you've got these guys that are huge movie stars that don't look like movie stars, like him and Spencer Tracy and Gene Hackman and, you know, Cagney. I mean, it's really interesting how they don't have they're not Brad Pitt, but they have the thing that just comes through the camera and you can't take your
sure,
eyes off them, even though they're
yeah,
not handsome, you know?
yeah. I mean, William
Yeah.
H. Macy is like that, where whatever he does, I believe it, and I'll watch a movie he's in because whatever he does, it's impossible for me not to believe him.
Yeah, I just
Whereas if I watch Al
he
Pacino,
was in
yeah.
my last movie.
Wait, which movie was the last one that he was in?
Soul on Fire. That was my
Okay,
last
okay.
that came out at the end of last year and
Right.
he was in that. He played Jack Buck, the
Okay.
sportscaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a perfect character for him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was great actually.
When you wrote your book, are you putting, and I guess when you write screenplays, are you putting Nicolas Cage in this role, and like how would Nicolas Cage behave in this way? And that's going to determine how I write the
No, I
character.
mean, I sometimes do that when I'm writing a script just because and I'm not necessarily using someone that actually might be in the movie. I'm just
Okay.
using, you know, just to have sort of a template in my head. Like, what kind of movie is this?
Right.
Is this a Harrison Ford movie or is this a Dwayne Johnson movie? You know, and
Right.
you're going to write them differently based on that. And so it's I do that quite a bit, but I actually didn't do it with the book. I kind of just wanted
Mm,
to use my own voice and sort of have a, you know, it does have that sort of noirish tone to it, I think.
mm-hmm.
Um, but I don't think it's any particular person. And they're actually, they did 20th Television option that they're going to do a streaming series, but I'm not going to write it. I'm going to keep writing books and let somebody else write the show.
Right.
So I don't know who it'll be yet. They haven't settled that yet, but
You just don't want to run a writer's room, or what's keeping you
yeah,
from
I mean,
being more
I
involved?
kind of, I enjoyed the process so much of writing this
Hmm.
book. I've already written the second one. It's with my publisher now. I'm waiting for him to
Okay.
react to it. Um, but I just enjoyed it, and if I can write them and sell them, and somebody else wants to make the show and send me checks, I'll do that. It's
Yeah.
I also think there's a little bit of, I'm so frustrated with this business right now,
Right.
the movie business,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
it's kind of, if I can find another way to still participate, but and I just loved writing the book. It was such a joy to do, for a number of reasons. First of all, I just enjoyed the actual process of doing it. It was fun to
Right.
write in that new format for me.
Yeah.
Something it's the first thing, what I told my wife is it's the first thing I've ever written that didn't start with the same two words, fade in, you know,
Yeah.
and it was a real joy. And then I also just love the fact that you write the book and there's the book. It's the thing. People are either going
Hmm.
to like it or they're not. But as
Yeah.
opposed to okay, here's a script that I really like. Now, before we take it to market, let's spend the next 2 years seeing if we can get Brad Pitt to read it, or Dwayne Johnson or whoever is
Right.
going to attach to
Yeah.
this thing,
Yeah.
and it's just a whole other process. There's so many other, like, there's an old joke in Hollywood of, you ask a studio executive, "Did you like my script?" And he says, "I don't know. I'm the only one who's read it." You know, there's just so many things you have to go through
Oh my
before
God.
you get anywhere. And
Yeah.
you write the book. There's the book. Someone's going to buy the book or they're not going to buy the book. It's
Yeah.
it's just, and I really
Yes.
like that about it. Plus, I felt like a much more of a sort of, like, I've had a couple of movies in my career that came out kind of exactly how I envisioned them. All right.
Hmm.
Knox Goes Away is one of them, which Michael Keaton directed.
Right.
Rosewood was one of them. There's movies that I've written that have come out, but a lot of times it goes through so many hands and so many filters, and the thing that comes out isn't even like really the thing that you wrote. It kind
Yeah.
of is. It's got your words in it, but and what I liked about writing the book was it's just me talking to the reader. It's like I'm just saying, here's this story. I'm
Hmm.
telling you this story, and there's no filter between the reader and me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I really liked that aspect of it. So
Yeah.
I intend to keep doing this. I mean, hopefully the book will sell, and
Yeah.
and if it does, then I'll really just be doing this probably for the next 20 years because I
Right.
really like it.
Well, it comes out next month, right? And
It
so,
comes
so we
out
got
April 28th, I believe.
April 28th.
But
So
it's
it's in
definitely,
pre-sales, everybody. Go
what's
ahead.
that?
I said it's in pre-sales, everybody. Look down below.
Yeah,
There it
it's in pre-sales. You can get it right now.
is.
And if you can pre-order it, please do, because like I said, it's my first one, and all the, Barnes and Noble and everybody else, they sort of base their orders on how many pre-sales we have.
Hmm.
It gives them an idea of how many books to buy. So
Yeah. Even that is a weird game where you're sort of compelled to push people through Amazon because they sell the most books, and the more of your books they sell, the higher up they push you. So you're all the way back to the beginning. You're more discoverable, and so
right.
you're always fighting this monster of how do I maintain. So what for you was sell well? I'm not trying to put you in the spot. Like it's got to be 1 million copies, but what
10 million, I think. Yeah.
10 million ought to
No,
do?
I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding, of course.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I have no idea what to expect. I don't know if I'm
Right.
going to sell 500 books or 20,000, or I just have no idea. So
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that it will sell, but I also have, I understand that continuing to write them is sort of the way to generate more sales, and they will, they sort of become a snowball at some point when people will pick one up and then go, "Oh, I want to
Yeah.
read the other ones that came before this," or whatever. So I'll
Right.
keep working. But this is, if this is the only book I ever get published, I'm very proud of it. I'm very happy with it. I
Yeah.
like it, you know. I've read it through a couple times. I mean, you read it so many times because you get the proofs and the, you know, people marking things up and
Yeah.
trying to fix my terrible grammar and all that
Right.
kind of
Poirier
stuff.
sucks. Over and over again.
No, it's interesting
when
though
you do
because
sit through that. Yeah. Go
I
ahead.
have a real, you know, I've written a lot of movies, so I have a good ear for
Mhm.
dialogue. And
Right.
sometimes the copy editors they try to fight you a little bit, and you say, no, 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 but this is the slang that this guy would use. You know, I know this
Mhm.
isn't right, but this is what the person would say. Or
Right.
even in description, sometimes I push back on those things
Mhm.
because you're trying to get a certain
Who wins
voice.
those fights? What percentage of those do you win?
The author wins.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
author wins. I think. But I'm not unreasonable about it. I mean, they can talk me into changing it
Right.
if they have a good point. You know, I'm not. The good thing about being a screenwriter is you learn to be collaborative because it's an extremely collaborative art form.
Right.
Movies, you know. So I'm not super duper precious. I'm not gonna fight every note. I'm not gonna, you know, if I try to listen to the notes and one of the things I've always believed is that even a bad note from a studio or from somebody, a director, whatever, there's something behind that note. Yes, it's a terrible
Mhm.
note, but there's a reason they gave that note. Something's not working for them, right? So you don't have to necessarily execute that note, but get in there and figure out why they gave that note because that will make your thing better, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think years of, you know, what, 35 years now as a screenwriter,
Well, yeah. Right.
it kind
Yeah.
of prepped me for this whole editing process. I mean, I think they were kind of a little bit surprised
Yeah.
how easy I was.
But I mean, it's a fair,
So
like, you guys don't know how you each do this job with someone of your pedigree, you know, and like you write safe and you're like, it's done. I don't touch it again, you know, whatever. If you did that, they'd be like, yeah, well, it's his ball game, you know. They could say that too, you know, and no, but
yeah,
not that you don't know how to take notes, not that anybody, but at some point you're like, I am the notes, like I know what to do, you know.
a lot of a lot of stuff that you love in movies are happy accidents too. You know, things happen on the
Mhm.
set,
Yeah.
and you know, there's a famous scene in Cold Blood where Robert Blake is about to go get executed, and he's standing by the window, and it's raining outside, and the way the light is coming through, it looks like he's crying, but he's not, right?
Yeah.
Because the water is like. It's
Yeah.
one of the most extraordinary scenes I've ever seen. It's unbelievable. And we had Richard Brooks come and speak. The director of the movie came and spoke to my
Yeah.
class, and he said, total accident. So we're
Oh man.
lighting the scene, we're getting, and the cinematographer says to me, Dick, come look at this, come look at this, you know. And I went, I looked at it, I said, oh, they're going to think I'm a genius now, you know.
Yeah.
But it was, you know,
Yeah.
so you just never know. Like that's the thing about movies, but with books, it's completely in your control, which I really like.
Yeah. Yeah. How long does it take you to write a book? Like to get the bulk of the work done? I'm not talking about editing and everything else, but like to save any, you put the hit the button, and now
I would
everybody else
say,
starts to get their damn
I
done.
would say about 3 months.
Okay.
3 to 4
Okay. So
months.
pretty fast.
It's I'm a fast writer. That's one of the
Yeah.
reasons I've had a career in the movies is because I can write fast. I've been called in
Mhm.
on a lot of like rewrite jobs and I've done uncredited rewrites on dozens of movies, you
Sure.
know.
Yeah.
And one of the main reasons for it is I'm quick. They know they're going to
Yeah.
get it and they're going
Yeah.
to get it quick. So,
Yeah.
but that being said, sometimes I go for 3 months without writing anything and then I'll sit
Mhm.
down and write a script in a week because somehow it's completely worked itself out in my head when I wasn't paying attention, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about the mastery that you get over something, you know not to worry because it's gonna come, and then thankfully it does come, and sometimes I guess it does not come at all, but you also know to, like, be calm, and you have the ideas, you have the dialogue, it's just a matter of trying to get everything else out of the way so it can come through.
Exactly.
Mhm.
My oldest son tells a story which I do not believe. I don't believe this story, but he tells it as if it's true. He says when he was 12 or so, he walked into the kitchen and he saw me standing there and I had the cabinet was open. I was just staring into the cabinet, not moving, not doing anything, just staring into the cabinet. He
Yeah.
says, I backed out and I told my brother, don't go in the kitchen. Dad's writing. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, who knows? Maybe there's some real version of that you recognize in yourself. Like, that's not true, but something like that probably did happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about the book coming out. I mean, it comes out next month, everybody. Just so y'all know, pre-sales, ding, 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 right down below is
Right
here.
there.
It's super easy to
Right.
do. Yes, exactly. The other way, or maybe I don't know. Depends on which way your screen is going.
Well, on my screen, I'm pointing at it. I don't know.
Okay. Let's see. And on my screen, I'm pointing at you, and it's always hard to know which one.
Right, you're there to me.
This is cool, man. Yeah. See, there you go. Okay, good. Hang on. Now it's really confusing.
Oh, geez. Now I don't know what to do. My entire reality just shifted.
Oh, wow. I dig talking to you all because it's just so fun to hear how everybody approaches this process, this problem. That's why I like writing it. Can I write this scene? And again, I'm just messing around when I do it because I'm not committing my life to writing screenplays and books and everything. But it's fun to try to take on these complex things and try to describe them in some way. And then I go and I read Steinbeck and I'm like, why am I writing anything? Because he's just so concise.
The worst thing a writer can do is compare himself to other writers.
Yeah.
I would do that. I used to beat myself up, like if I was sitting there watching TV in the middle of the day or something. Suddenly my brain would go, "I bet Stephen King is writing right now."
Yeah. I'm also fascinated by all things etymology and all those, and just pieces of language. When I got my undergrad, I took English as my foreign language, and that sounds silly, and I say it that way on purpose, but it is true. And they were some of the hardest classes I took. I mean, I had to learn so much about language, and just all these crazy things, and oh my gosh, and it was amazing. And so they're some of the most impactful classes I took in that whole multi-year journey, and so I'm always amazed at like rebuke. Well, what's buking? What's unbuking? What's pre-buke? And just all these journeys you can go on in your mind. And then you look up and I don't know if pre-buke is a word, but a lot of times they're archaic. They're not used anymore. But you're like, oh my God, there it is.
Right.
It's a word that no one's used in 100 years, but there it is. It's an actual word. I love that.
I have that same
I have that
same fascination with phrases and sayings.
Okay.
Like where did that come from? That kind of thing. And I don't know if there's a great board game called Origins.
Oh,
which you might really like. Actually, it's probably out of print, but I'm sure you can find it. But it's basically a board game, and that's what it is. It'll say, where did this phrase come from? He bought the farm, like things like that, and you have to figure out the origin of all these things. He kicked the bucket. Why does it say kick the bucket? Like, what does that mean?
Right.
And we have so many of those. We have so many phrases like that like I would say 80% of the population doesn't know that "get out of Dodge" came from Gunsmoke. They just say it, and it means go away, but they don't know why it means that.
Or how about the word meta and how it's changed to being like this internal version of yourself as opposed to a meta-analysis, which is a totally different thing and almost the opposite. So words can change. And so when someone tells me that's not a word, I'm like, it is now. I just used it, and you're welcome. I love to verbify things. Just take them and turning it in, oh yeah, you just Poirier'd that, whatever.
Yeah, I hate to think what that means.
I don't know either. Right in the cabinet.
He got so drunk he pulled a Poirier. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
The word that
the
word that drives me nuts, it's going to be a word, I'm sure. It's going to be in the dictionary soon, is another. Because another is a word, another.
Yeah.
But people say a whole nother, but nother is not a word.
A whole nother thing. You're right. Yeah. Also, I'll contract any two words together. I don't care. I just do it. I think it's fun. And that's one of the things that separates me from any kind of AI is that I will play with the language inside the language in a way that, like there's no robot doing that, All right. Well, anything else you want to say before I wrap this up? Otherwise, thank you. When you're ready for the next book, let's come on. Let's do it again. I'm definitely going to be buying this book. If you guys want to read it with me, you got the link down below. Yes, indeed. There it is. You can read it with me. I'm glad to have notes with you and everything else. The floor is yours. What do you want to close with, man?
I just want to thank you, and I just want to say I really hope people enjoy this book. I hope that it gives you some pleasure and some, you know, I hope there's surprises in it that make you happy, and I just really hope people like reading it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I hope I sell a lot of them, but more important than that is I hope the people that do read it really enjoy it, because that's the whole
Yeah.
point, right? The whole point
Yeah,
is to make people
absolutely.
happy.
I love that.
So.
Let's stop it right there. I'll say goodbye to you in a second. Everybody else, I'll see you later on this afternoon. I got another show because I'm crazy and I do too many shows each week. Bye-bye, y'all.